Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we welcome once again all the participants for this 10th session on the course of Bhagavad Gita, where we'll be discussing the chapter 7 entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. So far we have covered the first 6 chapters, which are broadly about Karma Yoga. And these middle 6 chapters are on the subject of Bhakti Yoga. So the last chapter ended with Krishna saying that of all the yogis, one who meditates on him is the most intimately united with him and will attain the Supreme Lord. So in this this chapter is also known as confidential knowledge. Just like in the second chapter, Krishna is giving confidential knowledge about the difference between the soul and the body. So another meaning of confidential is very important or useful to us. The next chapter after this is known as more confidential because it tells about how to attain the Supreme Lord's planet. And the 9th chapter is known as most confidential, is known as Raja Vidya, and because it is Krishna talks about Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. That is the most important instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, Prabhuji.
This is known as Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Very important. Jnana means knowledge. Vijnana means realized knowledge. So some things we can get by some knowledge we can get by ourselves or by studying books or by our experience. But then there's something called realized knowledge, which only someone superior who's perfect can give us. So this glory of knowledge about why we should know about Lord Krishna. Because we have relative knowledge. Relative knowledge means it is true under certain circumstances and under certain conditions it may fail. There are many such knowledge or truth we know that known as relative truth. Absolute knowledge means there is nothing equal to or greater than it and never fails. It is applicable in all time, place, circumstances. Nobody can overrule that. So this is knowledge about Lord Krishna because he is the supreme absolute truth. So what does supreme absolute truth mean? He has 3 features. That is, he is all pervasive. That is known as the Brahman. Then he is also localized. That he is present in all the atoms and the hearts of all living entities as Paramatma. That is the Chit. Then we have the bliss or the personality of God. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, who possesses the 6 opulences to unlimited extent. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternity feature. Chit means knowledge feature. Ananda means bliss feature. And Vigraha means form. So that is the definition of absolute truth. And hearing this knowledge, how is it acquired? By hearing. Because what is hearing? We are hearing at different levels. Mentally, we hear something. Physically, with the help of the ear, we hear something. Then intellectually, we hear something. And the soul is also hearing. That is the most important. Now, who can communicate to the soul? Only someone who is not contaminated by the 3 modes can perfectly communicate to the soul. So we have to hear from Lord Krishna or his representative. So this reveals phenomenal and numinous knowledge, jnana and vijnana. Phenomenal means which is within our experience. We experience knowledge through our 5 knowledge acquiring senses. We have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Through this, we have different perceptions of knowledge around us. But then this knowledge which we acquire through these 5 senses cannot be absolute. Because there are some things we see and misunderstand. We hear something and misunderstand. We smell, taste, touch, and we cannot get true knowledge. And also it has very limited because depending on the body we have our eyesight, our hearing power, our smelling power, tasting power, and skin touch sensation all are limited. So this is phenomenal knowledge. But then there is also noumenal knowledge. For example, I know that I have a mind, I have an intelligence, I have an ego. but I cannot see it or perceive it directly. We have to infer about it from its different effects that it produces. Similarly, the spirit is the real essence behind the matter. So all activities we are able to do, perceive, act and perceive. This is without the presence of the soul, just like the power goes, all these communication systems will fail. Similarly, if the soul is not there, all these phenomenal experiences we cannot have. Even if all our eyes, all our senses are perfectly in order, if the brain is not working, or if the soul leaves the body, this knowledge is not available. So hearing reveals phenomenal and numinal knowledge, jnana and vijnana. So what is knowledge is acquired through the senses, and vijnana is knowledge which is understood by the soul. Just like the mother is talking, the child is able to understand. How is it? Because the child is just newly born, but because the communication is from the soul, the child is able to understand the language of the mother. So vijnana is realized by the soul. And what is this real jnana and vijnana? About Krishna. But this realized knowledge is very rare. So therefore, we have to approach the spiritual master and who has realized in truth. So what do we mean by knowing about Krishna? Just like if we want to know the sun has energies. By heat and light is the energy of the sun. So when we understand Krishna, we also have to understand his energies. Just like if you want to know a person, we first learn about his greatness. Then only we can know about him. So material energy constitutes of, there are two types of energy. One is the material energy. Material means it changes shape, form. Energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, but changes shape. This we have heard in science subjects. So material energy means something which is always changing. It's manifestation, unmanifestation, and again manifestation. So what is that? Produced by constitutes of earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are from gross to subtle. Earth means it has 5 qualities. You can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it, you can see it, and you can hear it. The water has no smell, and air has no taste or before that, fire has 2 qualities less. Fire cannot be smelled, or fire cannot be uh, tasted. Then you go to air. Air has 2 qualities. Basically, it has sound and touch. And ether has only 1 quality, that is sound. So this material energy consists of this earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and combinations. And beyond this is the spiritual energy comprising the living entities. The living entities are not made of any of these material elements. So this has to be very clearly understood. That's why we saw in the 2nd chapter, Krishna says, the soul cannot be burned, cannot be cut, it cannot be dried, it cannot be moistened, and so like that. So Krishna is the creator, maintainer, and destroyer. So how does he create? How does he maintain? He has the power to, through his expansions, he is able to accomplish this for a very specific purpose. Just like we create a building, we maintain the building, and we destroy the building because there's a purpose. So Krishna also has a purpose in doing this. Ultimately, it is for the pleasing the living entities. The living entities want it that way because they are under the influence of material energy. They always want change. And variety is the mother of enjoyment. To satisfy them, he has to do this. And Krishna is all pervasive. How is he able to do all this? Because if I have to do something, I have to be present nearby. But just like the sun is far, far away from us, but without the sun, nothing will happen on the earth or any of the planets. So that's why Krishna, by his energies, is all pervasive. Just like we take medicine and the medicine spreads throughout the body. He is the essence of everything. Just like we have, Krishna goes on to tell how we have many experiences in this world, like we smell something, taste something, touch something, and he is the one who is the essence of all those things and is beyond the material modes. So what is the problem? So although we have many experiences, they are covered by the 3 modes. So what is good for me may be bad for someone or can be worse for other person. The same object is tasted by people in different ways. I give some liquid, I give some solids or anything, some smell. So each of us will experience slightly differently because we are under the influence of the sattva, rajo, and tamoguna. A passionate person will experience the same thing in a different way. A sattvic or a mode of goodness person or mode of ignorance person, each have different experiences. And but Krishna is concerned, he is beyond the three modes. So it's absolute. So from which all these other things will come. Therefore, one should surrender into Krishna. So what does surrender mean? There are 6 items. One should accept things which are favorable, and one should reject things which are not favorable. And third is one should learn to depend on Krishna, that he is the maintainer and that he will protect us. And then we have to be meek and obedient, meek and humble. And we should have no interest because God is always making some plan for us. And we should not make our own plans and create some confusion. So now Krishna in this chapter also talks about the 4 types of people who do and do not worship Krishna. So what is worshiping Krishna means? Krishna is provided us everything. God has provided all the resources for living happily in this world. And if we utilize it as per his direction, as given in this Bhagavad Gita, that is known as worship. Body, mind, and words. We have body has been given, our senses have been given, mind has been given, intelligence has given, all the resources for living happily for everyone has been provided. And if we utilize it as directed by Krishna, that means we are worshipping Krishna. And in this also, there are 4 levels. Not all are perfect in this. So we have 4 types of people that Krishna will elaborate. That is basically one who is in distress, one who wants some money, and then one who is inquisitive, one who already has some knowledge and is trying for perfection. And then these kind of people who surrender to Krishna and do not surrender to Krishna, the 4 kinds of people do not worship Krishna. So who are they? We'll discuss here. And among these, those who surrender to Krishna are magnanimous. Magnanimous means they are great. And among these 4 types, the Jnani is the best of them. One who is trying to serve Krishna with the knowledge. So why we want knowledge? We can improve our service and benefit more. So, and such a pure devotee, he is known as a pure devotee who is trying to surrender with the knowledge. That's why in the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is asking Arjuna, have you understood everything perfectly? And then even beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna told that I will fight only when all my doubts are cleared. So pure devotee is one who gets all his doubts cleared in this process of devotion, but such a person is very rare. So if you find someone like that, you should not miss that opportunity to associate with him and perfect our life. In this chapter, Krishna talks about demigod worship and impersonalism. Demigod means they are administrators of this material world on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Just like the Prime Minister is there, he has some ministers to support him. So like that, there is only one God. There cannot be many gods. By definition, God means there's nobody equal to him or greater than him. So who is a demigod? Demigod doesn't mean we are minimizing their position. Point is that they know very well that they have a particular service to do to the God. And here Krishna is talking about the worshipping them. So worship means it can be to only one person. Just like we cannot have many fathers. When we are born, by scientifically, we know that our father and mother is only one. Similarly, God means has to be one. So God worship is only for one person. And there may be many demigods who are assisting God in the administration of this world. So they have to be respected duly. Respected means you have to understand their specific roles. And the impersonalism means some people think that God doesn't have a form. Just like when we took birth, previously we didn't have a form, and now we have a form, and we leave the body, we again have no form. So people conclude, some people say that God also is like that. He doesn't have a form, he assumes a form, and then he gives up the form. So that is known as impersonalism. So, but this is a deviant philosophy in the sense that we lose respect for the absolute truth. So they are said to be less intelligent and their faith is given by Krishna. So then one may question, if everyone has to worship God, and why don't people worship God and instead they worship someone else? So that also Krishna makes an arrangement, just like the son is quarreling with the father, and the father wants to see that still the son doesn't lose track. He at least he is happy that he is under the protection of someone. So the Lord, even though everyone doesn't worship him, if he finds that someone is worshipping someone who is representative, then the Lord appreciates that, so that he will gradually come to respect him. But and what is motivating them to worship the demigods? They get quick material results that are perishable. Just like Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, they were great demons, but they worshipped Lord Brahma, or you can see Ravana also, he worshipped Lord Shiva. Why? Because they want to defy Lord Krishna, and they know that Krishna will not give some things, because people are still afraid if they worship Krishna, we lose something or will not get something. But this is not true, because Hari means it takes all the unwanted things. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, Yoga Kemam Vahamyam. I'll preserve what you have and provide what you lack. So he will only give what is beneficial to us, and he will protect what is necessary for us. Whereas the demigods, they will give indiscriminately. There are many instances where demigods have given boons to the demons and later they have regretted. Just like Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, and Ravana, Kumbhakarna. They got all benedictions from the demigods, but they created a lot of havoc in the to others. And impersonalist or intelligent Krishna is not obliged to reveal himself to them. Some people do not want to see God. Even if God is present for them, before them, they do not recognize his presence. And so then Krishna obliges to them. Ye yatamam prapadyante tam stateva. As all surrender unto me, I reciprocate accordingly. So God reciprocates according to the mood of the worshipper. If someone doesn't respect him as God, he accepts that. If someone doesn't respect his personal form, that also Lord accepts, because he doesn't want to disturb the living entities. Just like the parents, when the child is not accepting something, they go get into agreement with the child slowly and then gradually reform. So, so how do we progress from delusion by Maya to devotion to Krishna? Maya means that which is not. Maya means that which is not, or illusion. Right now, we have voluntarily accepted to be influenced by the three modes. And we can overcome the three modes by surrendering to Krishna. So Krishna, what is the benefit? Krishna knows past, present, and future. Because Krishna has a transcendental body, which is not influenced by the three modes. Our body currently is under the influence of three modes. So therefore, it has a past, present, and future. And the moment we change our body, we forget everything. Whereas Krishna doesn't change his body, and therefore he knows past, present, and future. And all jivas are born into delusion. Actually, the living entity is transcendental to the three modes, but since they become deluded by the three modes, just like when we see the clouds, we are not able to see the sun. So the living entities are born into delusion, and one who is sinless can do bhakti with detachment. So what is the way out of these three modes? One should become sinless. Sinless means one should become devoted, because Krishna is agha. He is he is also sinless. And when we contact Krishna with the process of yoga, we also become sinless, and we can become determined. What is the determination? To overcome the influence of the three modes requires determination. As Krishna said in the 6th chapter, the mind is the friend and enemy, but by suitable practice and detachment. So that the determination comes by engaging in sinless activities, which are only bhakti. Anything which is other than bhakti is considered sin, because it is against our nature. Our nature is Jivera Swarupuhoi Nitya Krishna Das. By nature, we are all devoted to Krishna. But when we don't act in that capacity, then it is considered sin or adharma. A moksha kami bhakta takes shelter of Krishna fulfillment. Now, it's not that everyone comes to Krishna without a motive. Some people, akama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena. Some people want liberation. They want to get rid of their sufferings. And they also take shelter of Krishna. No, so in conclusion of this chapter, Krishna is known as Adi Bhuta, means the source of all the material elements. We have this different, this material world is made out of 24 elements. He is the Adi Bhuta. Adi Bhuta means he is the source of all the bhutas or elements. And then he is the Adi Deva. He is the controller of all controllers. And Adi Yajna, he is the one who is to be ultimately satisfied. We try to satisfy everyone, but it is not possible unless we satisfy Krishna. So this is the essence of this chapter. So in the first 6 chapters, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit and capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yogas. So we know in the 2nd chapter, there is a discussion about the Sankhya Yoga, or an analytical study of what is the difference between the soul, permanent, and body, which is temporary. And then we talked about Karma Yoga, how can one can do his work as an offering to Krishna. Then we talked about Jnana Yoga, cultivation of knowledge. Then we talked about Dhyana Yoga, cultivation of meditation or the Ashtanga Yoga process. So depending on how much a person is conditioned by the three modes of material nature, just like a child is there, immediately he cannot rise up to the 10th standard or the PhD level. He has to go step by step. So this yoga process also has some beginning and a middle and the end, so known as Yoga Ruksha and Yoga Ruda. So at the end of 6th chapter, it was stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, Tadgate Madgaten Antaratmana, because Krishna is transcendental and the mind is our friend and enemy. So how it can become our friend? When it's fixed upon Krishna, who is our well-wisher. And Krishna consciousness is the highest form of all yoga. Just as when the sun is there, you can see everything clearly. When you become conscious about Krishna, you know about all living entities, you can know about God, you can know about material nature and the interrelationships. And so in this chapter, Krishna begins to explain the process of Bhakti Yoga. Just like it's a big, huge building is there, multi-story building. And if you have the elevator, you can directly go to the 100th floor. And you need not go floor by floor. So whatever benefits you get from the other process of yoga, you also get through Bhakti Yoga. And what you don't get through the other process of yoga, you can also get from Bhakti Yoga. That is the supremacy of Bhakti Yoga, because here we are being helped by Lord Krishna at every step. Whereas in the other yogas, you have to depend on yourself or others. And Krishna had spoken of attaining liberation by working with detachment, renunciation in action. That is Nishkama Karma Yoga. He will speak about devotion in action. So difference between Nishkama Karma and Bhakti Yoga is that in Nishkama Karma Yoga, you are trying to detach from the results, but you don't have any object of attachment. So that is going to be difficult. After one style, you will feel why I should be detached. I'm losing something. So unless you attach yourself to something very strong, you cannot really practice this detachment forever. So therefore, this devotion to Krishna will really help you to become detached. Of all the limbs of Bhakti Yoga, Sravanam, hearing about a Supreme Lord, is foremost by which one can know in full. So now, as we said, there are 5 coverings. Earth is a covering, and water is a covering, fire is a covering, air is a covering, and ether. So these are the 5 material coverings. Now, how do we go through this 5 coverings? That is by the process of hearing. Just like if you want to clean something, they use ultrasonics. Many healing techniques are also based on ultrasonics. You have the ultrasound therapy, you have ultrasound scan, all these are there. Because by sound, you can go through these coverings. So, and this hearing should be about Krishna. That is the absolute truth. And then the absolute truth includes the living entities, Brahman, the material nature, and their manifestations. Manifestation means how is it perceived. So here Krishna is saying, Tat Shrunu. He is telling Arjuna to hear him attentively. So this is to be heard attentively. So what is the glory of knowledge about Lord Krishna? What is the benefit of knowing about Lord Krishna? The hearing reveals knowledge. Just by hearing, you can know about Krishna. Normally, just by hearing, you cannot understand certain things. But Krishna is such that the name, his form, quality, activities can be transmitted through hearing. Even now, some modern science also, they have seen that even if you want to transmit an image, you can transmit it through sound and then reconstruct the image. So same way, if you want to understand about Krishna, the first way is to hear about him. You, just like the child is there when it's born, the only sense which is working is the hearing. His eyes also, it is open, but it cannot see anything or understand anything. He cannot perceive other things, but his active sense is the hearing. So that hearing reveals knowledge about Krishna. So now, Arjuna, please hear how by taking shelter of me, Mad Ashrayaha. So I'm practicing Bhakti Yoga, Yogam Yunjan. How with mind attached to me, Maya Saktamana, you can know me in full, Nyasyasi Samagram, free from all doubts, Asamshayam. So these are the benefits of knowing about Krishna. How do we do that? By taking shelter of Krishna and by practicing Bhakti Yoga with mind attached to me. When is the mind attached? When our intelligence is fixed. And with the knowledge, And what is the benefit? You can know in Krishna. So if you know Krishna, you know about the living entities, you know about material nature and God also, and our relationship with Him. And this has to be, all your doubts will be freed, because doubting soul always loses. So we don't want to be doubting. Doubting also produces fear, and fear produces anger. Anger produces attachment. And Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashraya Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yata Jnasyasi Tachrunum. Complete knowledge of the Lord includes knowledge of matter. So matter has gross matter and subtle matter. Just like some gases are there, you cannot even perceive them by smell, or cannot see them colorless. So like that, there's gross matter and subtle matter, and then the spirit, yeah, the source and controller of both. Actually, it is not possible to know Krishna in full. So because we are limited, we cannot understand the unlimited. So at least just like a glass is there, in that it can hold only some amount of water, and there may be an ocean of water, but only I can take as much as the cup can hold. Similarly, although God is unlimited, we can only understand to our extent, within our limits. So therefore Krishna is going to give knowledge of the essential principles of facts about himself. To what extent we should know, that much he is going to give. But the details are unlimited. As we'll see in the 10th chapter, Krishna says that how he can be perceived in this world around us. And still he concludes by saying that this is only a fraction of my glories. Now, whatever is required for our completion, that he will provide in this chapter. Jnana Vijnana about Krishna. Knowledge and realized knowledge. Just if I say, supposing a fruit is very tasty, and if I keep on describing about the fruit, you won't get an experience unless you start eating it. So Krishna will give both this Jnana and Vijnana about himself. Jnanam Teham Savijnanam. So this knowledge will lead to Vijnana. Sometimes we have theoretical knowledge, but we don't have practical knowledge. So we think later we regret, oh, I wasted my time just hearing about this and reading this. I don't feel any use of it. But the way Krishna is giving, it will lead to Vijnana. You will be motivated to realize it also. Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshami ashishita. I shall speak to you. Because Krishna is going to speak to him, he is able to give both jnana and vijnana. Because I will explain to you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal about my material and spiritual energies, and noumenal about my personality and sweetness. So what we cannot know about him, he will reveal himself. There are some things you can observe a person, observe something and understand by yourself. Some things, unless that person tells you, you will not know. So Krishna is saying, because you are very dear to me, because you are not envious of me, I will give knowledge about myself which you can experience yourself, and also something which you cannot experience yourself, which I can only give you. Okay? Yajnatva neha bhujonyat jnatavyam avashishyate. Knowing this, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So ultimately, what is the source of all problems in life? There are some things which we know and something which we don't know. Even up to Brahma, he also knows something and he doesn't know something. So with all these imperfections, we are not able to solve our problems or the problems of others. But if you know this knowledge that Krishna is giving, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So what is this noumenal knowledge? Greatness and sweetness of Krishna. Generally, jnana refers to theoretical knowledge. Jnana refers to realized knowledge. Realizing Krishna's sweetness is greater than knowing his energies, jnana. Krishna describes jnana in chapter 7 to 8. That is the Vijnana in chapter 9 and both in chapter 10 to 11. The sweetness means what is his attractive features? How do we get attracted to something? Unless we get attracted to someone, we cannot have a relationship with him and benefit from that relationship or understand the goal of that relationship or the purpose of that relationship. So Krishna is revealing his sweetness and about his qualities. Now Krishna says, this is also, I am giving you this knowledge which is very rare. Supposing someone is trying to encourage you, he will tell you how rare it is for you to get this knowledge. Manushyanam sahasreshu. First of all, getting the birth as a human being itself is rare. And among that Sahasreshu, thousands among men, Kaschit Yatati Siddhe, one may endeavor for perfection. Nobody is interested in perfection. Even though they have attained the human form of life, they are satisfied with the animal necessities. No? They don't think beyond that there's something more for me to achieve in life. So therefore, Krishna says, Yatatam api siddhanam, of those who have achieved perfection. Some people think I am perfect. Okay. And they, but Kaschin mam veti tattvaha, hardly anyone knows me in truth. Although they think they are perfect, even they may get liberation. But still they don't realize that they are still imperfect. When do they realize that? When a particular situation comes when they were not at all prepared, then they realize that, oh, I thought I was so perfect, but now I realize I'm totally imperfect. So Krishna says that this is the fact. In knowing Krishna as he is tattvataha, in truth, one realizes Krishna as the possessor of unlimited, inconceivable energies. Now, he has unlimited energy. We get exhausted, supposing I am very rich. There's a limit. If I am strong, I'm beautiful, I'm famous, I'm intelligent, and I'm renounced, still it's all limited. Okay? But he is possessing unlimited. Therefore, he can give all this to everyone. Only someone is unlimited, he can give freely to everyone. And he is inconceivable. How he is able to do that? It's inconceivable. Just like some medicines are there, they are able to heal some diseases, or herbs are there. They have some inconceivable property by which they can cure a person. Even doctors do not know how it is curing. Or there some diamonds are there. If you wear some diamonds on your body, they have some inconceivable energy by which they can cure some diseases. Okay. So the cause of everything, there's a cause for something, and there's a cause for that cause. Like that, if you analyze what is the cause for everything, just like we have a heater and a cooler. The heater is giving some hot fluid, the cooler is giving some cold one. But the cause for both of them is the electricity. Electricity has neither heat nor cold, but it can be manipulated to produce two opposing effects. As the jewel of unlimited auspicious qualities. There are many auspicious qualities we observe around us, and he is the jewel among them. He is the topmost among, such as omniscience. Omniscience means he knows everything. Omnipotence means he can do everything. And above all this, he is affection for his devotees. That is the greatness of God. We are affectionate to people whom we like or very dear to us, but God is someone who is affectionate to everyone, and particularly to his devotees. That is, supposing I am devoted to someone, that person cannot reciprocate with me. But God is someone who can reciprocate with everyone, and more than what we can do to him. Now, knowledge of, so Krishna is saying, not only knowing about him, but Lord Krishna's energies. We, first of all, cannot approach the person directly. We can approach only through the energy. Supposing the sun is there, what is my first experience? Is the experience of the heat and light of the sun. Before I reach the sun planet, I first experience the heat and light of the sun. Similarly, before I experience Lord Krishna, I can experience him through the energies. So what in the Krishna is the source of both the material and spiritual energies. I said there are two types of energy. One energy is material in the sense that it's always constantly changing its form. And spiritual energy means it doesn't change its form. Everything within our experience is a combination of these two energies. Just like a person is there, is a combination of the spirit and his body. And you may think, what about the non-living things? Yes, they also have a spirit, the supreme spirit. The Lord is present in those atoms also, and they assume the Krishna's material energy is known as apara prakriti. Para means transcendental, apara means not transcendental. Krishna's material energy, apara prakriti, which means it is made out of the three modes of material nature. By combination of the three modes of material nature, you get all these 24 elements. And it's known as the Maya Shakti. What is that? Maya means it creates an illusion. Just like if you are in the desert, because of the heat wave, you can see an illusion of water. So just like you are watching on the TV, that's an illusion in the sense that actually something else is happening. But when it's projected on the screen, it looks like it is happening in front of you. So all our experiences are produced by this Maya Shakti or the Apara Prakriti. Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayu Kam Mano Buddhirevacha Ahankaramiti Yamme Pinna Prakriti Rashtada. So how do we recognize this material energy? It is made out of this earth, water, fire, air, and ether. How do you recognize earth? Earth has 5 qualities. It has smell, it has taste, it has form, It has touch and it has sound. And water has one quality less, fire has one quality less, air has one quality less, and ether can be recognized by sound. Just like if you're playing a mridanga, it is hollow inside. And because of the hollowness only, it is producing sound. If the mridanga is filled with clay, then it doesn't produce sound. Empty vessels make the most noise, they say. Unless the vessel is empty, it cannot make noise. So, or if it should be filled with a medium which is producing sound. So this ether, sky, these are all subtle and subtle. And then mind is even subtler than that. Intelligence is even subtler. And ego is even subtler than that. Subtle means it cannot be perceived, but it's the most important. And ahankaram. Ahankara means I am the doer. Ahankara. Kara means I am the doer. Ahankara makes us think that I am the only doer. I am the enjoyer. I am the controller. So altogether these 8, 5 grasp and 3 subtle, Binna Praktirashtada constitute my separated material energies. Why is it separated? Because the God doesn't require it. We require that. Just like a person is a diseased person, he needs some extra things. He needs some extra facilities like a bed or something like that. So God, healthy person doesn't need that. So the healthy souls who are liberated souls, they don't need the help of these 24 elements. But because some people have conditions or disease state, they need the separated material energy. Okay, God, neither God requires this, nor the liberated souls need these 24 elements. But those who are under the influence of this Apara Prakriti or Maya Shakti, because of their conditioned nature, they require this separated energy. Supposing your heart is not in order or breathing is not in order, you need an extra apparatus to support us. So the 5 gross elements are have their respective sense objects. Supposing I want to smell something, I need a nose. If you want to taste something, I need a tongue. If I want to see something, I need an eye. If you want to touch something, I need the skin. If I want to hear something, I need the ear. So like this, according to the different bodies, they are made out of this combination of these 5 material elements. For example, a fish is there, its body is predominantly made of water element. And the bird is there, is predominantly made of air element. So like that, these produce these different sensations: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. And there are 3 subtle elements. Subtle means they are very refined or sublime. What are they? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the soul's misidentification of matter and its illusory conception of I and mind. So what is the role of the mind? It makes us accept and reject things. And intelligence helps us to discriminate. And the false ego creates an identity for us. False ego also includes the effects the 10 senses. Because of false ego, we keep on acquiring different types of nose, tongue, eyes, skin, ear, hands, feet, voice, anus, and genital. Because we are constantly changing our ego, the senses keep on changing. In one lifetime, I have a body of an animal. Another lifetime, a body of a plant or a reptile or a fish or human form. So this keep on changing because of the false ego. But Krishna's spiritual energy, Para Prakriti, Jiva Shakti, the living entity actually is superior to this Apara Prakriti. Apareyam itaspanyam prakritim vidime param. Besides this inferior and unconscious energy, know that there is another superior conscious energy of mind. The living entity is actually superior to the material nature because it is similar to Krishna in quality. But currently, it thinks that it is inferior to the material nature and therefore it is controlled. The Jiva is also called Tatashta Shakti or marginal energy of the Lord. Why it is known as marginal energy? Either it can take shelter of the Supreme Lord or it can take shelter of the inferior material energy. Because although spiritual and can control the material energy, the Jiva sometimes come under its influence and becomes conditioned, forgetting its real spiritual position. Just like if you are below the clouds, you cannot see the sun. But if you go above the clouds, then you can see the sun clearly. So Krishna is the creator and destroyer. What is he creating and what is he destroying? The effects of this material energy. All created beings have their source in these 2 energies. Everything that exists in this world is a combination of unconscious matter and the conscious spirit. So whatever we observe around us, supposing an aircraft is flying, there's a pilot inside it or a passenger must be there. So nothing can function without a combination of this conscious and unconscious matter. But he's the origin and the end of everything. So how do this come together and separate? That is happening by the will of Krishna. although these are incompatible things like oil and water, they are combined, they are allowed to stay together. Although they have totally different properties, Krishna by his potency is able to bring these together, just like milk and solids and water, they form a colloid has become milk. But sometimes the milk gets spoiled and they separate out. So our oil is there, paint is there, it's a mixture of emulsion of oil and this water, solids. So Krishna is the maintainer and the supreme personality. He is the maintaining this combination of this soul and matter. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Paratara means nothing superior to me. Matta means me. Na anyat, nothing. Kinchidasti dhananjaya. There is no truth and no one superior to me, or conqueror of wealth. Dhananjaya means conqueror of wealth. Actually, we are the owner of all the wealth of Krishna. But right now we have abandoned Krishna, so there we are struggling. Mayi sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. What is the analogy he's giving? Everything rests upon me, the supreme shelter, as pearls are strung on a thread. Supposing you come across a beautiful necklace or jewelry, we know that there is a string running through the pearls. Or supposing a nice cloth is there, we know that there is a thread going crisscross. Otherwise, you cannot have an experience of the cloth. So, but normally we don't see the thread, or we don't see the thread which is running through the pearls. We only appreciate the necklace or the pearl garland or flower garland. We rarely see the thread which is tying, keeping them together. So Krishna says he is the supreme maintainer of the whole universe. Just like all the planets are able to float in their orbit perfectly, Krishna explains how he maintains his world in the next 4 verses. He is not only the source, cause, and base of everything, he is also the essence of everything. Okay, now how would he, unless something has an essence, I cannot relish it. Supposing I'm drinking some water and it doesn't produce a taste, then I reject that water. It's not healthy for me. Or if I'm given a flower and I don't get any smell from that flower, then I no use of that flower. So like that, Krishna explains that in the water, he is the one who is giving the taste in water. He is the one who is experienced by relishing water. And he is the, now for example, when you drink water, if it doesn't quench our thirst, then it's the purpose is lost. Even if you take little water and it quenches our thirst, that is real water. And that taste is Krishna's power. Sometimes people keep on drinking water, but they don't feel quenched. In fact, it can create some problems, health problems also if you drink too much water. The problem is not with the water. The problem is the water you are drinking is not surcharged with taste. It doesn't have the proper minerals. Krishna is all pervasive and the essence of everything. What is the one who, unless there is essence to something, you don't really benefit. Supposing you're eating some food and it doesn't give any essence, then it's as good as waste. So rasoham apsu kaunteya. Apsu means water. Rasa means taste. Aham means I. Kaunteya means son of Kunti. Prabhashmi Shashi Surya Yoho. Shashi means moon. Surya means sun. Prabha means the light of the sun and moon. Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. Pranava means Omkara, or the source of all the sounds. A, U, and Im. These are the from which all the sounds are produced. Sarva Vedeshu. All the Vedic mantras are originating from this Omkara. Vedic mantra means knowledge. We have the Rig, Sama, Atharva, and Yajurveda. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. These are fulfilled by each of these Vedas. And those sound is produced from this one A, U, and Pranava. Shabda, K, Shabda means sound. K means ether. I am the sound in ether. Paurusham Nrishu. Among men, I am the ability. Paurusham means ability. Punyo Gandha Prithivyamcha. Gandha means smell. And Punyo Gandha means natural fragrance. Sometimes you have dirty smell, but that is because of contaminated smell. The original smell, the natural fragrance, Prithivyam, of the earth. Tejas Chasmi Vibhava. So, Teja means heat. Cha Asmi, I am. Vibhava, so means, Vibha means this fire. And Jivanam Sarva Bhutesh, I am the life of all that. If you find something is living, that is because of Krishna's presence in that. Tapas chasmi tapasvishu. Tapah means austerity. Cha asmi, I am. Tapasvishu, of all the some ascetics, you can see some people are able to do a lot of austerity. Even a non-devotee or an atheistic person also is able to do extreme austerity. So that strength where he is getting, that is from me. Bijam mam sarva bhutanam, a seed of all existence. Just like you put a mango seed, you get a mango tree. Huh? So like that, he is the seed of all existences. Vidhi partha sanatanam. Vidhi means to know. Know that. Partha means son of Pritha or Arjuna. Sanatanam, of all. Buddhir buddhimatam asmi. Buddhi means intelligence. Buddhimatam means intelligent. Asmi, I am the intelligence of the intelligent. You find someone is very intelligent, but still his intelligence is coming from the Supreme Lord. Tejas Tejasvinamaham. Tejas means prowess. Tejasvinam means one who has prowess, a powerful man. Aham, I am the power of the powerful. Now we can see sometimes a person very strong suddenly becomes very weak. Muhammad Ali was there, for example. He said, "I am the king of, I'm the mightiest." And then we see he died in Parkinson disease. So we can see balam balavatam chaham. Balam means strength. Balavatam means one who is owning that strength. Chaham means I am. Kama raga vivarjitam. So what kind of strength? Some people use this strength to cause harm to others. No, I'm not that kind of strength. That strength which is free from selfish desire and attachment. Supposing you are very strong and you're able to satisfy everyone and help everyone, and only you're not partial to someone and not helping someone. So that kind of strength, he say, I am. Dharma aviruddho bhuteshu. What is not against dharma? Kamosmi bharatashva. If you are trying to fulfill your desire, which is not against the religious principles, that is me, Krishna says. All the above 14 examples are present in the three modes of material nature, which are aspects of now. Because we are under the influence of the three modes, still how can we realize something which is transcendental three modes? So Krishna says, you can realize it me in this way. And Krishna is beyond them. At the same time, just like the sun is there, it is far beyond this universe. But still you can perceive the sun in terms of its effects on this earth planet. Supposing the fruits are growing, flowers are growing, vegetation, the chlorophyll is being produced. We know all the sun, the beautiful lotus flower is growing. All this because of the sun only. But it is all produced by material nature. So even though we are in this material world, we can feel the greatness of Krishna. Having said this, he is both the cause and the essence of everything. Krishna summarized that even the three modes of material nature that control this world are under his control. So even though everything is in this world is produced by the combination of the three modes, still it's not random. They are fully under his control. But Krishna is beyond the modes. How is he able to control them? Because he is beyond the modes. All states of being are modes of material nature. These three modes, when they combine together, they can be situated in three combinations: Sattva, Raja, and Tamoguna. Sattva means goodness, passion means Rajas, ignorance means Tamas. So, and manifested by energy, but I am not under the influence. These are three states of three modes of the material nature. Just like you have some water is there. Water is a solid state, that is ice, and it has a liquid state, that is the water itself, and it has the vapor state or water vapor. Similarly, the three modes, they can be present in any of these three modes. Knowledge about Krishna should lead to surrender to Krishna. So what is the benefit of knowing about Krishna? We more and more start accepting Krishna as part of our life and devotion to Krishna. But ignorance of his greatness caused due to attachment to his inferior material energy is an obstacle to such a surrender. If we don't recognize the greatness of Krishna, naturally we go to something less than Krishna. Supposing you are not able to qualify in a very good competitive exam, immediately you choose some other college, which is lesser than that. So that is our nature. If we don't get the highest one, we are satisfied with the lowest. We don't think, oh, I have got the lowest, let me try for the highest. So having said that about himself being distinct from his two energies, inferior and spiritual, Lord Krishna will now explain the importance of taking his shelter. So now Krishna is saying that although the living entity is superior to this material energy, right now he has taken shelter of material energy and given up the shelter of Krishna, who's beyond these three modes. So he is telling how one can take shelter of him. And what will happen to those who do and do not take shelter? If you become a devotee, surrender to him, what is the benefit? If you don't surrender to him, what will the benefit? In Krishna will outline. So what about surrendering Lord Krishna? The jivas are deluded by the modes and thus cannot understand me. Just like when the sun is there, it produces the clouds, and the clouds prevent us from seeing the sun. The actual clouds are required to give us rain, but the same clouds sometimes prevent us from seeing the sun. So these three modes are actually meant to benefit the living entity. But sometimes these three modes can prevent us from approaching the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it says, they thus cannot understand me, who am untouched by the modes and inexhaustible. The modes are concerned, they are exhausted. They can become exhausted. Some person is very good. You can see after some time he is no longer good. A person is very passionate. He cannot maintain his passion. Or some person ignorant. He is miserable in that ignorance condition. But as Krishna is concerned, inexhaustible. He can He's untouched by the modes. He's always in his transcendental position. Tribir gunamayer bhaver eve sarvam idam jagat mohitam nabijanati mamepya paramamyayam. That is, he is always transcendental to the three modes and therefore is inexhausted. One who is under the influence of the three modes, he becomes exhausted. Okay. And transcending Maya, how do we transcend this Maya? By surrendering to Krishna. Devi Hesha Gunamayi. Gunamayi Maya means this Maya is Maya also two types of Maya. Maya is also means knowledge. Maya doesn't mean always illusion. Sometimes Maya also means knowledge. There are two types of one Maya is giving knowledge. One type of Maya puts us in ignorance. So this Gunamayi Maya is the one who puts us into ignorance. Devi Hesha, but it's also divine energy of mind. The divine energy of mind, the Maya, constituting of the three modes, is difficult to overcome. Mama Maya Duratya. It's very difficult to overcome. Just like the jail is there, and the prison, it's a very sophisticated prison. It has been designed such a way the prisoner cannot escape. Mam eva ye prapantente. But those who surrender unto me, Maya metam tarantate, can easily cross over this Maya. Although this is very difficult, if you surrender to Krishna, it becomes very easy to cross over. That is you can see in the 9th chapter, Krishna is talking about Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitram, Idamuttamam, Pratyakshaavagamam, Dharmam, Susukam, joyfully performed, Avyayam, inexhaustible. So release from bondage. Another meaning of guna is rope. Just like a rope, if you make it, you see it is made from 3 strings, small, thin strings are there. You intertwine them and make one string. And then like that, you keep on intertwining 3 sets of strings and you make a strong rope. Sometimes a rope is stronger than a steel rod. Sometimes they use steel rods, but they are not strong as compared to a nylon rope. But why? Because it is made out of this intertwining of the strings. So the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. The illusion is like 3 times. Someone is tied by a golden chain. Someone is tied by a silver chain. Someone is tied by a iron chain. So like that, but a man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be, so that is our position. Although we are trying to help each other, we are all bound. So the bound cannot help the bound. So Bhakti Yoga can help one gain such release. Only Krishna is not bound. Even Brahma also is bound by the three modes. So Krishna is beyond Brahma. So he can, being free, the Lord of the illusion energy can release the conditioned soul from bondage. Just like the person who's outside the jail, he can order the release of a prisoner. So because Krishna is outside the jail and he is instituted the jail, he can order the release of a patient, prisoner, just like the president sometimes has some executive powers by which he can release the prisoner. If surrendering to Krishna is a solution to cross all the entangling material laws, then why don't all people surrender unto Krishna? Now we have offered this Bhagavad Gita course. We are telling everyone it's the benefit, but still people don't see any interest benefit out of this. What is the way I can just get something else? So that is their perception. Though Krishna is also accepting that. He is saying that four types of dushkritina. Dushkritina, miscreant, impious. They wantingly they want to do something wrong. Just like child is there, it wants to do mischief. So this Dushkritnas, impious people who do not surrender to Krishna, they don't accept this instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Just like this Bhagavad Gita is openly discussed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So many were able to hear it. But who followed? Only Arjuna could follow. Namam dushkritino mooda prapadyante naradama maya aprita jnana asuram bhava mastritaha. So Krishna very well knows that there are four types of dushkritis who never surrender to him. So he is giving this knowledge so that we know that such people will exist. Who are they? Moodaha. Mooda means he is in the form of, he is living in the animal, a human body, but he is acting like an animal. Animalistic fools who work hard solely for material sense pleasure, which is available for even in the animal life, you can enjoy certain things. So, what is the need for you to be in a human form if you also want to behave like an animal? They are known as Moodaha. Then Naradhamaha, lowest of the mankind. Although he has assumed the human form, he is the lowest of the mankind. He doesn't follow the rules of Manu Dharma. Humans who lose their chance to revive the lost relationship with the purpose of human life is to Brahma Jignasa. And having come to the human life, if he doesn't inquire about his true nature, about the nature of God and this relationship, then he is known as a Naradhama. They give up bhakti even after practicing. Sometimes they take to bhakti. Once they get something benefit out of that, or they don't see any benefit in that, they give it up. Then Maya Aparhata Jnana, deluded speculate. Some people are exercising their mind power or their intelligence, but it is because they're deluded, whatever conclusion they come to is wrong. Supposing you're trying to prove something and your axioms are wrong, then whatever proof you establish is going to be not so rigorous. The same way, because they're deluded, whatever ideas they generate with the help of the mind, they're going to be misleading. And even though they are studying the scriptures, they will come to the wrong conclusion. And therefore, their knowledge is stolen by Maya and they think of God to be ordinary human. Just like Mohini Murti, when she appeared, their demons were bewildered. So sometimes knowledge also can bewilder a person. And sometimes we see very intelligent people also act very foolishly. Sometimes the chess champion, he makes a blunder. Even a novice will not make such a mistake. That is because the knowledge has been stolen by illusion. Asuram Bhavam, who are thoroughly atheistic, demoniac atheists. So these are the four kinds of people who do not surrender to Krishna. And this is present from time immemorial. You can always find such people. Then Krishna talks about four types of people who are known as Sukritina, who are naturally pious. We don't have to tell them to be pious. They naturally are pious. So they bhajante, worship Krishna, which means they follow Krishna. They accept Krishna. They use their body, minds, and words as directed by Krishna, and eventually surrender, prapadyante. They may not be fully surrendered now, but they will gradually come to the point of surrender and benefit themselves and others. Who are they? Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritano arjuna artho jignasu arthati jnani. These are the four. Artho means one who is in distress. The elephant Gajendra, he was attacked by a crocodile and he continuously prayed for the Lord for thousands of years and the Lord helped him. Or we see that Draupadi was in distress. So Artha. And Artharthi means someone goes to Lord seeking wealth. The Kuchela was there. He went to Krishna because he wanted some wealth. Or we see Dhruva was there. He was insulted by his stepmother and he wanted to get a kingdom greater than even Brahma. So he got Dhruvaloka. So he worshipped Krishna. And then Jnani means one who is seeking knowledge, like the Shukadev Goswami. And Jignasu, Jignasu Jnani. Jignasi means inquisitive, some interest you have, but not fully. Then jnani means you have already some knowledge, but you want to get perfection in that knowledge. So Sukritinas are pious people who follow the scriptural principles, social and moral codes, the rules of Varnashrama and worship Krishna. So what types of, there are types of bhakti. Kevala bhakti means pure bhakti. Someone doesn't have these more for material motives. He only wants to please Krishna. That is a Kevala bhakti, unalloyed devotional service. So without any selfish motives, because Krishna is our well-wisher. He is our benefactor. He is the proprietor. So we don't have to hide something and go to him. He knows what we want best. So you need not ask from him. You need not pray for it. But Krishna, but some people still, they have some motive. Just like a child is there, his father is a very rich person. He can give all the money in the world, but the child asks the father for some chocolates or some toys. Similarly, although Lord can give us everything in this world, because of we have our selfish motives, we do bhakti with a purpose. That is known as uh, that's not Ananya Bhakti, Akinchana Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, that devotee becoming an associate of the Lord with Dasya Sakyana. So, what is the benefit of this Ananya Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti? We'll enter into a relationship with the Lord in the 5 types of uh, uh, eternal relationships. I think someone should mute the participants. I request the host to do that. Then we have Pradhana Bhuta Bhakti. Bhakti mixed with tendencies for karma, jnana. Some people take to bhakti, but they want to get elevated to heavenly planets, or they want to get liberation, or they want the mystic powers. And but still they are doing bhakti. The 4 sukhtinas are of this category. That is, some person is doing bhakti to get freedom from problems. Someone is doing bhakti to get some money, and once they get the money, they give up the bhakti, or once their problem is solved, they give up bhakti, or once they get some knowledge, little knowledge, they think, okay, this is enough, I don't need any more. Or they think once I get a perfection, some degree or something, then I will give up bhakti. So, so these are all mixed bhakti. But Guni Bhuta Bhakti is bhakti mixed with tendencies of karma, jnana, yoga, and so on. That is the bhakti which is contaminated by the 3 modes. Because when bhakti is contaminated by the 3 modes, we think, okay, I got this, that's enough. If I get some heavenly planet. So bhakti is they do bhakti, but the motive is to get something else. That's why we see in the name of bhakti, people get cheated and they cheat others also. That's why people don't want to go someone near a bhakti. We think, okay, he's a very nice bhakta, but at the back of the face, he's doing something which are so abominable, even an atheist will not do. So it is seen in karmis, jnani, yogis who predominantly desire results for their actions, bhukti and mukti. Jnani is so among these 4 types of people who are said to be mixed bhaktas, the jnani is the best because he is trying to get knowledge about Krishna. Although initially he is coming with some material tendencies, the knowledge of Krishna will gradually purify him. Just like Dhruva came to the Lord for some material benefits, but once he had the vision of the darshan of the Lord, he thought those are inferior. And he constantly Nityukta thinks of me and serves me alone, Eka Bhakti. I'm very dear to him and he is dear to me. While the first 3 types of Sukritina serve Krishna because Krishna fulfills the desires, and Jnani serves Krishna wanting to know about him and without material desires. So Jnani is the best. So in other words, you should do devotion with the knowledge. If you do devotion without knowledge, it becomes a sentiment. And if you have knowledge and no devotion, it becomes a mental speculation. So knowledge and devotion, both are required. Upon further advance, we know the Brahman and Paramatma fully purified. He realized that his constitutional Krishna is to be the eternal servant of Supreme Lord Krishna. So, what is the highest knowledge? Highest knowledge is to know that we are the servant of Krishna and Krishna is the master. And Krishna says, such a person who is trying to know about me is very dear to me. And one who gives this knowledge to others, he is also very dear to me. And all of them, but still Krishna says all of them are great. Even though they have this contamination of the tinges, they're one step better than these 4 types of people who don't surrender to me. But because the person who is cultivating knowledge about Krishna is sure to attain me, because others may come and leave. That's why we see we are organizing this Bhagavad Gita class, because without knowledge, our devotion will not last long, and we will not attain the goal of devotion. Then the Krishna said the Jnani Bhakta is fixed in him as the supreme goal, and thus he attains him. But how long does a Jnani take to become qualified as a pure devotee? Now one may ask, how much knowledge should I have to become a pure devotee? Okay, I thought a little bit is enough, but you are saying I need more and more to become perfection. So therefore Krishna says how rare it is for a jnani to attain such a high level of devotion. Now the advantage is, although you may be not so intelligent, Krishna later says in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, Tadami buddhi yogam tam. If you are sincere, even if you are an illiterate, if you are not so knowledgeable, if you are not so perfect, still if you take to this process, Krishna says, I will give you the intelligence by which I will empower you so that you will reach that perfection. That is the benefit of this bhakti yoga. So this is rarity. It's very rare. Krishna is giving something very rare to you, which normally nobody can. He is giving out of the way. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, what is the benefit? Jnanavan mam prapadyate. He who is actually knowledge surrendered to me. So what does it mean? If someone is giving you this knowledge, immediately you have to accept, because if you try it on your own, you're going to take many births and deaths. And if Krishna is giving you this knowledge, or his representative is giving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and if you accept it, then you are intelligent. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Vasudeva means Vishuddha Sattva. Krishna is transcendental three modes, and from him everything is coming. Sarvamiti. Knowing me to the cause of all causes and all pervading surrenders to me by devotees. Now, the same thing which is coming from Krishna is giving a problem to me. But if I surrender to Krishna, the problem is solved. That is the point. And Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha, such a great surrendered soul is very rare. So this bhakti is very rare. Although it is very simple, it's very rare. Destination of Sukritina, the Arti, Arthati, Jnanyas, after experiencing material pressure for many lives, finally in one birth find these pleasures, distasteful, and association with pure devotees, gain knowledge of Krishna's Swarupa, become. So although these people are coming to bhakti, they have some shortcomings, and therefore they take time. It's not the problem with the process, the problem with the candidate. And so it doesn't matter. Krishna encourages worshippers. If worshipping Krishna makes the Sakama Bhakta successful in this way, what happens if they worship the Devata? Now, instead of worshipping Krishna, if someone says, okay, let me worship some demigod, and after all my problems are solved, after my desires are fulfilled, then I will take to Krishna Bhakti. So that is not going to happen. That Krishna is explaining why we should not go to someone else other than him. Just like you go to the bank, the cashier is always having money with him. In fact, the bank manager will not have any cash in his counter. But it seems that the cashier is having all the cash. And if you think, okay, I will ask the cashier and he will give me the money, then that is illegal. So likewise, the demigods seem to be giving so many things to people, but we know, intelligent person knows that he cannot give without the sanction of the manager. Similarly, the demigod cannot give without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is going to elaborate on this point of demigod worship and impersonalism. Now there are 4 types of people who don't surrender to Krishna and 4 types of people who surrender to Krishna. And he is describing the position of those who surrender to someone else instead of him. There are 3rd categories there. They don't surrender to Krishna and they worship someone else. It looks like they are very nice. They are worshipping someone. They are very devoted. But it is Avidhi Purvakam, Krishna says. And there are the 4th category is there. They don't accept anyone. They don't surrender anyone. Even if they surrender to someone, eventually they'll give up that also. So this is the 4 categories, but they are more dangerous than this 4 types of people who don't surrender to Krishna. So who does demigod worship? What kind of people do demigod worship? Those intelligence is stolen by material desires. Kama stays jnana. One is overcome by the desires. Just like if you go to a shop, the shopkeeper will give you anything you want with that money. But if you take that money and tell your father, I want to buy something which is not good for you, he will slap you. The shopkeeper, as long as you give the money, he will please you. Like that, these demigods, they will just, if you have the karma, good karma, they will give you, whether it's good for you or bad, they don't care. If you have Kamaisteste Hridajnana Prapadyanti Anya Devata. Because they know that Krishna will not fulfill some desires, they have some illegitimate desires. So they go to some person who will fulfill that and accept him as God. Okay, and accordingly they adopt their own rules and under the control of their own low natures and desires. Those who worship Krishna with material desires, Sakama Bhaktas, are liberated. So what is the benefit of worshipping Krishna? Even though you go to him with an impure desire, he will not only fulfill the desire, but he will purify the desire. Just if you go to a doctor, some doctors, they will cure the disease. Again, it comes, again you go, again it comes. So, but some people, they will go to the root of the problem. They not only solve the problem, but they will make you free. So similarly, Krishna is someone who not only fulfills our desires, but he will make us free from the unwanted desires. So those who go to Krishna, demigods instead of Krishna, what will happen? They will take repeated birth and death. They will be born again and again in different planets. They will go to one demigod, they will not be satisfied. Then they go to another demigod, not satisfied. Like 33 crore demigods are there. They keep on revolving through all these planets. And now, why are they going like this? Krishna says, I give faith and the results to them. At least if they don't surrender to Krishna, Krishna is encouraging that at least they surrender to the demigod. And so he gives them faith, and he empowers the demigods to give the results to them and make the faith steady in the worship of the particular demigod, and thus they attain their respective desire. But in actuality, I bestow those benefits. Now, why he is doing that? God doesn't interfere with our independence, and he is giving the knowledge along with the independence. So if we use the independence with the knowledge, then we benefit. So what is the results of demigod worship? They perish. Antavantu phalam tesham. The difference between worshipping Krishna and worshipping demigod is, if you worship Krishna, the results are permanent. And you can, but in worship demigods, they become exhausted because they themselves cannot, just like the bank manager is there, bank cashier is there, he can give money only as long as there's some deposit in the bank. If nobody is a customer, then deposits money in the bank, how can they can give? So antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavati alpamedasam. Alpamedasam means less men of small intelligence. Worship the demigods, the results they obtain are temporary and limited, because the demigods themselves are limited and temporary. Devan deva yajo yanti. They worship the demigods and they go to the planets of the demigods. But in the next chapter, Krishna says that one who worships me comes to my planet, which is imperishable. And so depending on whom you worship, you have different destinations. Just like if you go to the rail station and you take different trains or aircraft, you go to different destination. Even though you have the same amount of fare, depending on which destination you choose, there you go. So it's not that all paths lead to the same goal. They all paths will lead to the same goal if the ultimate destination is the same. Now, so even though the demigod worships get their desires fulfilled, they should understand that they are empowered to do so on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Now, the another category is the impersonalists. They think that ultimately there is no person. Everything is impersonal. So that's even more dangerous. And they think that Krishna has assumed a personal form, and Krishna also will give up that form. And we have assumed a form, we will give up that form. Demigods have assumed a form, they will give up the form. So their concept is misplaced. And they seem like detached, but they always oscillate between detachment and attachment. Sometimes they become very attached, and sometimes suddenly they become detached, and again attached. So they are always hovering. So in the Gita, it says that neither demigods nor Krishna are impersonal. That's why in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, as Krishna says, it's never that we never existed, nor will not exist, nor we exist not exist in the present. So Krishna is the supreme personal God. He has his own planet, and the demigods have theirs. So avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abuddhaya param bhavam vachananto mamavyayam anuttamam. The foolish thing that I, the supreme person, was impersonal before and have now assumed personality. Just like we don't see the sun doesn't mean the sun doesn't exist. Because we are situated on the other side of the earth, we may not see the sun. Similarly, although God has a form, presently we are not able to see it personally. Even when Krishna was present, many people could not recognize him. So that shows our ignorance and not the capacity of the Lord. So in conclusion, in this chapter, Krishna has eternal form, qualities, past tense. Then why do you not see things at all times? So even though Krishna says he has all his qualities, name, form, activities, Krishna reserves the right of not revealing himself to all. If Krishna chooses, he will not give us bhakti. So naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavruta mudo yam nabhijanati loko mam ajam abhyayam. I am not manifest to everyone always like the sun. I am covered by my internal potency like the cloud. Therefore, the foolish people do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So, unless one practices devotion, he cannot become intelligent, and without becoming intelligent, one cannot realize God or himself or this material nature. Uh, so how do you overcome this delusion? Now, what is the advantage of Krishna? As I told you, Krishna has a body with Satchidananda. Therefore, he knows past, present, and future. Whereas our body is Achit, Asat, and Nirananda. So, unless we take surrender to Krishna, we cannot know the past, present, and future. We don't know, just like the Father is there. He was there before we took birth. And he knows even before birth what was happening. And so, just like that, Krishna knows the past, present, and future, whereas we don't even know the present properly. And Vedaham Samatitani. Veda means I know. Aham. Samati Atitani means the present. And Atitani means past. I have know everything that happened in the past. Vartamani means a present. Bhavishyami means all things in the future. Because our body is always changing, it has a limited past, present, and future. Because the Lord's body is never changing, he has unlimited past, present, and future. Mam tu vedana kaschana, but no one knows me. Although Krishna knows everyone, nobody knows him. Because of delusion and dualities of honor. And what prevents us from knowing Krishna? The dualities of dishonor and honor, misery, happiness, woman and man, good, bad, pleasure, and pain. Because we are this desire and hatred. We like something, we hate something, like something, hate something. That duality under the influence of the three modes prevents us from knowing Krishna even when he is present before us. Just like when the sun is there also, we want to close the windows and sleep. Okay, so that is the condition now. So therefore, in conclusion, all living entity is a born delusion at the beginning of creation and bewildered by dualities. Dvandva mohana arises from desire and hatred. So if you are attached to desire and hatred, then we are overcome by the dualities, and then we cannot realize Krishna even when he is present before us. Icha dvesha samuttena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham satya yanti parantapa. So dvandva moha, it is said, the illusion of duality. Is there anyone who is free from the delusion of duality and is qualified to manifest devotion to Krishna now? Krishna answers now. Esham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. One whose sins are eradicated. How sins can be eradicated? Just like you have a fire. No matter how much fuel it put, it exhausts. So no matter how much sin we do, Krishna is the only one who can consume all the sins and who has acted piously in previous and present. What is the piety? Piety means doing devotion. If you are a devotee in the past, you take to devotion immediately, and they become freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage in my service with the determination. So how does determination come? When you are sinless only, you can be determined. The more you are sinful, you lose your determination. And therefore, intelligent persons trying for liberation from old age and death. Chara, Marana, Mokshaya, take my shelter. This birth, death, old age, and disease, these are the four problems. And one can overcome that by devotional service, because Krishna will explain the next chapter how he is the Adi Bhutam, Adi Devam, Adi Yakyam. That's a very important chapter, how we can attain the Supreme. And then we can overcome this birth, death, old age, and disease. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions? So basically this chapter talks.
Hello, can I ask a question, please?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is that how can someone overcome the dependency? Like if you are completely dependent on others and there are certain things which you cannot perform as per your wish. So how will you get out of that?
Yeah. So we should be clear that even if you depend on someone, there is something which he cannot do for us. That should be very clear. If you think that I fully depend on him, sorry to use an example, that a donkey is said to be fully dependent. A donkey actually it's work very hard for the master, and he keeps on loading tons and tons of cloth on the donkey, but it's not intelligent because the donkey doesn't realize that I can get grass anywhere. I don't have to depend on this master for my food. But the donkey mentality is such that he thinks that unless I serve this master, I won't get my food. So that master also exploits this animal for the like way. So when we think, if we become fully dependent on the wrong person, we get exploited. So we should use our intelligence to understand, yes, I am depending on this person. I know very well.
It's not all about being dependent on the wrong person. It's the right person only, but you want to do something which is which is not under your control. So in that situation,
Yeah, we have to depend, put some dependence on someone. It's not that we don't depend on anyone, but at the same time, we should know that that person has a
let's say
limit.
you're dependent on your family member for certain things, then how will you get out of overcome if you want to do something which is like different from what you don't expect from your households.
Yeah, you can't depend on them to some that extent that they can satisfy that. But you should also realize that there are some things which they cannot fulfill. Then you should know, just like if you have a sickness, you cannot go to your family members. When you're healthy, they can take care of you. But when you fall sick, you should know that I should go to a doctor. Or if you have a legal problem, your family members cannot solve, I should go to a lawyer. So you cannot depend on the family members, say I'm fully depending on my family members. You should know if I'm depending on someone, yes, I depend on them, but I also know that they are limited. So ultimately, if you apply this philosophy, you should know that at some situations, only God, I can depend only on God. Nobody can help me. That you might have experienced in your life. You come to a stage where although everything is there with you, like the Gajendra, the elephant, he had so many people to accompany him. But he knew that nobody could help him. Even Draupadi understood that she depended on her husbands and all the elders in the family, like Bhishma, they also could not help her. Then she understood only Krishna can protect me. So we should always remember, yes, right now I am depending on these people because God has empowered them to take care of me. But at the same time, I should know that at some point they cannot help me. So that's why we should, on the safe side, we should learn to depend on Krishna all the time. And we still depend on others to the extent that they can take care of us or we can take care of others. So there's a question here. Is it all right to be devoted to one form of Krishna alone, or is it required to know him in full? For example, I am more drawn towards Lordly Krishna, the mischievous child who plays pranks. Is it heavy to understand the mature Krishna and the high philosophical life? How much I listen to? Okay, she's saying, yeah, so everything, this progress happens with associating with you. Artificially, you cannot be attracted to one form of Krishna. Huh? So that's why this devotion to Krishna also, it is bestowed through devotees only. Just like you get a PhD by, you are given awarded PhD by a person who already has the PhD. Similarly, bhakti also, although theoretically we are reading all this, we are hearing all this, ultimately bhakti has to come from a person to person. Just like the disease is there, it is spreading from person to person. Even bhakti spreads from person to person. Theoretically, when we understand, then when we see the right person, we'll get it. So these different bhavas to Krishna, either you treat Krishna as your child or you serve Krishna as his a father or a lover or a friend, these ultimately come through his devotees who are already fixed in that relationship. Just like you get married to someone, that person already has a relationship with his family members. And when you marry that person, you get connected with those family members. Similarly, although these different forms of Krishna are there are people who are already in that relationship with Krishna. And when you get attached to them, you attain that relationship. Otherwise, it's only practice. Right now, you may think, okay, my child, I treat Krishna like my child. But ultimately, you may not be satisfied. That's why we see even among devotees of Krishna, they keep changing their relationship. Sometimes they are attached to the child Krishna. Sometimes they worship the Gopi Krishna. So this is all subject to change. So thank you for your patient hearing. And we'll continue tomorrow next week on the 8th chapter, very important chapter. I said this chapter is known as confidential knowledge. Krishna has revealed something about himself and he will more about him to motivate us to attain his spiritual abode. What is the benefit of attaining his spiritual abode? If you don't try to attain his abode, what will be your destination? All this is very nicely explained there. And so after that, we'll again have a practical session. So that is the program ahead for us.